Let us all just raise a glass and toast the momentum that is in the room, the people here, the medical professionals, the scientists, the business people, the entrepreneurs, the medical device makers who have contributed to what is really a momentous time in our medical history. So here's to all of you. The forum is going to focus on bioelectronic medicine, a transformative frontier where science, technology, and patient care converge. This new field of medicine, which uses device technology to modulate the body's nervous system, is at a tipping point. So I'm thrilled to kick off this 2025 Constellation Forum with a conversation with a guy who is not only a brilliant neurosurgeon, but then became a superb scientist, one of the world's greatest researchers, and I'm happy to say, a hell of a writer, too. This is his book on the vagus nerve, The Great Nerve. I started reading it over the week. This guy can write on top of all of that. It is a science book that reads like a very conversational book, and congratulations on that alone. That is really fantastic. I'm going to call him, with apologies to Elvis, the king of Vegas, okay? Because that's what he is. He is the king of Vegas, Dr. Kevin Tracey, the president and CEO of Northwell's Feinstein Institutes for Medical Research. Please welcome him.
Thank you very much, Tyler. And thank you for plugging my book. The check's in the mail.
No, it's really good. It's a great book, and it's full of anecdotes about real patients who you have helped, whose lives you have transformed, and that makes it all the more impressive and impactful. Let's talk a little bit about the great nerve. It's not only been at the center of your life's research, but is seemingly and perhaps uniquely responsive to bioelectronic medicine. Describe for me what I would call an audacious leap that you made from knowing, quote, vagus nerve connects brain and immune system, vagus nerve can regulate or modulate inflammation, to this: we can build a bioelectronic device that can manage the vagus nerve, and if we do that, we can ameliorate symptoms, change lives, control inflammation, and even save lives. What was the moment like where you had that aha phenomenon that said, we know what the vagus nerve can do, and we can make something that can turn it on and off and make it a thermostat?
The operative word is we. You used that word a couple of times. It was we when we were in a laboratory and saw the result of an experiment. Call it an accident, call it serendipity, call it a surprise, where putting the molecule of a few molecules, if you will, of a drug in the brain of a mouse stopped inflammation in the body of the mouse. And so in the old days, they would have said, Eureka. In the lab back then in 1998, we said, WTF. How could this be? And so my colleagues and I made the discovery that you said, that signals in the vagus nerve traveling from the brain through the neck into the organs of the immune system shut down inflammation. And the way we measured, the simple answer to your question is the way we were measuring inflammation was by looking at decreasing the amount of TNF that was being made. How did we know that putting an electrode on the nerve in 1998 might one day lead to what we have today? Because TNF was already an FDA-approved drug product used by millions of people. Drugs that block TNF were used to treat rheumatoid arthritis and inflammatory bowel disease. We knew that nerves respond to electrical stimulation, and we knew in a mouse that if we did that, you could stop inflammation. And so it really wasn't a leap of faith. The leap of faith occurred when first dozens and ultimately over the years hundreds of scientists worked on this project. At first dozens of people in Set Point Medical, many of whom are here today. At first dozens, then hundreds of people worked on the project. Investors, at first dozens, and then hundreds of investors worked on the project. A few clinical trials, at first dozens, and then hundreds of people working on the project. At this point, you're thinking, what could possibly go wrong? Well, then you get to neurosurgeons working to rheumatologists, what could possibly go wrong? Yeah, everyone laughed is in medicine.
Yeah. So
then,
let me,
then
go ahead.
wait. Then you get to who's going to prescribe it, who's going to regulate it. We have some insurance companies here. Who's going to pay for it? How's it all going to work? So we is the operative word. And now that we have FDA approval under SetPoint's brilliant marshaling of this idea through clinical trials, yes, we can all celebrate, but we have a lot of work to do, and that's why we're having this meeting.
And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more. Just for the record, can bioelectronics devices stimulate different parts of the vagus nerve that would help regulate inflammation in different organ systems? Can you target it that precisely?
So right now, the way the targeting is being done is by using a small amount of current that activates only a small number of fibers, and fortunately, those are the fibers that stop inflammation. So even though the device today is about the size of a multivitamin, it's inserted in the left neck, and it touches the whole nerve, the effect of the stimulation is to stop inflammation in a fairly selective, specific way. However, technology is going very fast. Medical advances are going very fast, and it's what we're looking at now is we're at the beginning of a new era when very small devices will be able to be put eventually on other nerves in other parts of the body. We're getting specificity today with what we have, and it works in people with rheumatoid arthritis. We fully expect that from what we know today, it will also work in other conditions like multiple sclerosis and inflammatory bowel disease without even changing the form factor. Other people will be working on changing form factor.
Well, this is what I wanted to get to next, which is, of course, that SetPoint Medical got approval from the FDA this summer for the device that is used to treat rheumatoid arthritis. You're the kind of the spiritual father, I'm going to give you credit, of that device. So thank you, Your Holiness. So what other diseases or conditions are being helped today by using bioelectronic medical devices that target the vagus nerve? And what are the next autoimmune or inflammatory diseases the devices will treat? We are at an inflection point. Where is the promise greatest, and how soon will it get here?
I think the promise is greatest today for the conditions that we already know the most about. And so the conditions that we know the most about are those that are already being treated with drugs that target cytokines, because that's what we know how to do today in people. So that list is long. I won't be able to list all the conditions that are going to be on the short list, potentially. Multiple sclerosis, I said, inflammatory bowel disease, potentially some forms of lupus, psoriatic arthritis. That list of autoimmune conditions goes on. That's where we already have a very clear sort of development paths that could be embraced by a development approach. However, on the research side of things, the list where we have data for significant medical conditions that treating inflammation might confer significant advantage in either preclinical animal models or in some cases in early pilot clinical trials, there's tremendous interest in diabetes, in cancer, in obesity, in cardiovascular disease, in stroke, and even in Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
And while I know a lot of sort of laymen think, well, I have a little inflammation in my knees, or I have inflammation around a wound that I got, inflammation is implicated in death. It is a cause of death.
So a little inflammation is good for you, and it's good for you because it helps heal the wound if you sprain your ankle, and it helps fight off an infection if it's a common cold or an infection in your skin. It's bad for you when it becomes dysregulated or uncontrolled, and the beauty of what we've learned about what we call the inflammatory reflex in the vagus nerve is that it's evolutionarily conserved. There's a primitive form of a vagus nerve in roundworms, the worms that live under rocks. Every mammal that we've studied has an inflammatory reflex. That means that over millions of years of evolution has honed the inflammatory reflex to control inflammation without causing immunosuppression. And right now, patients being treated with conditions like rheumatoid arthritis have to have a trade-off. They have to choose between taking immunosuppressive drugs that are invasive, they have to be injected, that can cost $100,000 a year in the US. Because they cause immunosuppression, they have black box warnings, which means you can get cancer or sepsis or severe complications. And to add insult to injury, they only work half the time. Now, to be fair, these drugs have benefited millions of patients, but they only work half the time. And if you and I were to invent these drugs today, we couldn't get them approved.
So let me ask you the question that would be the natural follow-up. What percent of patients, for example, with rheumatoid arthritis, what percent of patients are helped by using bioelectronic devices? What sort of relief do they get? And can you predict who will benefit most, as opposed to someone who may not respond as well?
So these are early days. We estimate that between 300 and 400 people have been treated with vagus nerve stimulation for rheumatoid arthritis. So these are important questions that will play out over, at first, many thousands of patients and many millions of patients. But what we know as we sit here today is there are about 1.5 million eligible patients in the United States today who would be eligible for this now FDA-approved therapy because they have taken biologics or another class of drugs called the JAKs, synthetics, and they have not responded well. They still have symptoms, and or they had so many side effects from these drugs that they're now eligible for this.
As you just mentioned some of the side effects from some of the medications. The medications help millions of people, but some of them do come with severe side effects. What, if any, are the risks of bioelectronic devices or the side effects of them?
We have 40 years of experience with vagus nerve stimulation. Actually, literally hundreds of thousands of people since the 1990s have been treated with vagus nerve stimulators in one form or another for depression and epilepsy. We know it does not cause immunosuppression. We know it does not have long-standing lingering side effects. We know that it's safe, and we know that the major side effects are actually minor. They're things like surgical wound infection or minor trauma from the surgery. So we know it can be safely done. And that's a remarkable thing. When you actually look at the most recent trials from Set Point, the complication rate was a fraction in the patients receiving vagus nerve stimulation. There were no long-term adverse events. And the overall complication rate was significantly less than the complication rate from a comparable trial using biologic drugs.
Can bioelectronic devices be curative and not just palliative? Can they be preventative? Can they be, and I assume the answer is yes, more precise than other medical interventions?
I'm looking at my physician colleagues in the room, and we've all been trained to not use the cure word. But it's true. Look at them. You can say who they are. However, I have now had the wonderful pleasure of meeting 4 or 5, maybe 6 patients who are walking around, formerly unable to sort of button their blouse or pick up a pencil from their rheumatoid arthritis, and they're now walking around, living normal lives, taking no medication, having no symptoms, and their only therapy is the vagus nerve stimulation. So in the privacy of my home, and this, I feel I'm among all friends here in private, I think they're cured, but we don't know.
Well, one of the patients whom I just read about in your book is here tonight, Kelly Owens, who was one of the first recipients. You're going to hear from her tomorrow. How does it make you feel when you see the walking, smiling, happy person that she is today because of the work that you and your colleagues have done? How does it make you feel?
It brings a tear to my eye right now. It's the most gratifying experience any physician scientist could ever have. Doing what we do is noble work. It's privileged work. It's all about the patients. It's not about anything except the patients. And I think that's something else that unifies this group here tonight and tomorrow. And what all this is leading to is that there's lots of other people out there who could maybe have the benefit that Kelly's had. But we won't know unless we knock down a whole bunch of remaining obstacles and barriers. And that's our challenge, and that's a deadly serious responsibility. What are those barriers? What are those obstacles? And if you hear Kelly's story tomorrow or read it in the book, it'll bring a tear to your eye. What she and Sean had to do, Sean's here too, say, hey, Sean. What they had to do to get the outcome that they now share together, it's our responsibility to knock down those barriers for all the other Kellys and Seans out there. So that deserves an applause.
So since you raised it, I'm going to go to I was planning to have my last question, but it won't be. But it may be the most critical one, and you just hit on it. From my experience as a consumer and an observer of medicine, I'm assuming that not everyone is as enthusiastic about bioelectronic medicine as you are. There may be barriers. Pharmaceutical companies may not love it. Insurers may balk. The government may be slow to get on board. So what are the obstacles to adoption, and what has to be overcome, and what can the people in this room do to overcome those barriers?
Well, that would take another half hour, but I'll go fast. I mean, for the insurance companies, it's a huge win. Their patients will be happier. SetPoint needed 250 patients, give or take, in their clinical trial. They had 30,000 people sign up. You tell me what the patients want. 30,000 people tried to get into the trial for 250 opening. Patients want this. They don't want to inject themselves. They don't want to be immunosuppressed. They don't want to go bankrupt. Insurance companies will make money by paying once for a therapy that will then last for years and years and years, rather than paying a recurring fee of $50 to $100K a year for the biologics and the other things. So insurance companies win. Patients win. What has to change are pre-authorizations, ability for people to understand how the payments are going to work. Workflows have to change. Right now, there are set patterns of where the patient goes, when they have this, that, or the other thing. They see their rheumatologist. The rheumatologist goes down a checklist. Interjecting a surgical procedure into a disease that's been treated for many, many decades by drugs alone requires a change in workflow. You said the pharmaceutical industry? They can jump in. They can invest in these companies and in these technologies, and they can be part of it. The pharmaceutical companies I've spoken to said that we're not opposed to bioelectronic advances. We are in the business of making cures. So I fully expect companies like GSK, J&J, and many other pharma industries will in fact be investing heavily in bioelectronic medicine now that we proved it works.
I've just gotten a 2-minute warning, so I'm going to close on this question. As you dream your big dream, how big can bioelectronic medicine be? Does bioelectronic medicine have the potential, perhaps, to be a platform as big or maybe even bigger than surgery, maybe even bigger than pharmaceuticals, maybe even bigger than diagnostic radiology? And what could this revolution mean for healthcare and society?
Scientists don't dream, you calculate. And if you know the size of a pond, and you know how many pond lilies are on the pond, and if you know the doubling time of a pond lily, you can predict the future. You can predict when the pond will be covered in pond lilies. So just knowing from what we know today about the effectiveness of vagus nerve stimulation and rheumatoid arthritis, the trajectory of developing therapies for other autoimmune conditions based on the same sort of mechanisms of action targeting cytokines, you can make a safe prediction that the total addressable market for this idea is somewhere between 10 and 30% of the global pharmaceutical industry. So I think that's a fairly sure bet that over the next 5 or 10 years this will play out. The unknown is how much more time it will take and how much more mechanism of action and clinical trial data we'll have to collect for the other big conditions I named. And I think that will play out over 10 or 15 years. So this already is big. It will be huge because the facts are pretty clear.
Kevin, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tyler.
Congratulations on your work.
Thank you, Tyler.
And your life's work.
Thank you.
And for changing the lives of people like Kelly.
Thank you.
And everybody, I got a couple of housekeeping things. You can go ahead and walk down and take a lovely walk down the aisle if you want. Go out and buy the damn book, will you? Okay? It's really, really good. So thanks again, Kevin, for that. We're going to talk a little bit about tomorrow. Tomorrow you're going to go to another iconic venue, that is Carnegie Hall. And this is sort of, as I said, the appetizer portion of what you're going to get tomorrow. A very robust and full day of programming. Now, I get to say my 4 favorite words. The bar is open, okay? And it is going to remain open until 9 o'clock. You are welcome to stay here and mingle as much as you would like. You are welcome to ascend and go up and see some of the marvelous collections that are here, see some of the modern works that are very, very appealing. I just came back from a trip to France, and there were a couple of Van Goghs up there, some Cézannes as well. So we hope that you'll enjoy it. The Guggenheim, I think you can't take drinks up onto those floors, but they'll stop you if you can't do that. But at any rate, looking forward to seeing everyone again tomorrow morning. Thank you all for coming. Kevin, once again, thank you and congratulations on the book, but more importantly, all you do to make this world a better place. Thanks, everybody.